In Venezuela, the National Electoral Council confirmed that 100% of the electoral machines have already been distributed across the country ahead of the July 28th elections. In the United States, leaders of the Democratic Party and other high-profile figures supported Vice President Kamala Harris as Biden's replacement. The current president announced his withdrawal from the race. And in Palestine, Israeli occupation forces ordered a new evacuation of thousands in Han Yunis al-Mawasi town. Hello, welcome from the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. On Sunday, the president of the National Electoral Council of Venezuela, Elvis Amoroso, confirmed that 100% of the electoral machines have already been distributed across the country. Amoroso said so during the pre-dispatch audit in the venues of the National Electoral Council located in the state of Miranda in the central north of Venezuela. On the preliminary audit, in which witnesses of political organizations attended, authorities verified the correct functioning of the communicational devices. Therefore, the president of the highest electoral body ratified that the stages of the ballot agenda for July 28th elections are being rigorously complied with. We go now live to Caracas. Our special envoy, Yunus Soner, is at Fortuna, where defense authorities met with Carter Center representatives. Hello, Yunus. What is the latest from Venezuela?
Hello from Caracas. Hello from the Hall of Fame, Hall of Honor, Simon Bolivar, here inside the Ministry of Defense. We are right now waiting for the representatives of the Carter Center to come out from their meeting. Now, what happened? They were received by the Minister of Defense, Padrino Lopez. A delegation of 8 persons came from the United States, from the Carter Center, headed by Jenny Lincoln, who is the head advisor for Latin America and the Caribbean. The Carter Center is pretty important. We should remind our viewers that it has a long history of cooperating with Venezuela in terms of election observation and watching. It has been here during 7 different elections since 1998 and has written comprehensive reports about these. For instance, in 2006, the center confirmed in a public accessible report how efficient and well-working the electronic voting system was, and in 2012 it has also confirmed increased citizen confidence into the electoral system. So this delegation is now also here again to observe the July 28 elections, and it is meeting with different political actors and different institutions, and today was received by the Minister of Defense, Padrino Lopez, who welcomed them wholeheartedly. He said, "We are very happy that you are here, and we do welcome all the delegations that are invited by the National Electoral Council of Venezuela, which is the only authority, which is the only institution authorized to invite foreign observers or watchers, better said." So Padrino Lopez gave a summary of the situation as he sees it. He spoke that he observes an enthusiastic, joyful atmosphere ahead of the elections. He said that the armed forces celebrate every time the elections come because it moves the country away from the violence. And in fact, the minister said he wished that there were more elections. The National Bolivarian Armed Forces play a crucial role in the elections, and this is within the plan of Republic, the plan which the minister then explained to the representatives of the Carter Center in detail. That plan foresees that the armed forces provide the security of election centers, of voters, and of the voting machines ahead and during and after the elections. So every voting center is guarded by members of the armed forces, which will, as the minister has announced, deploy thousands of soldiers officially starting from July 24th. But right now, for instance, in all the election stands where citizens are taught how election works, how the procedure works, you see also already present soldiers of the armed forces, of the National Bolivarian Armed Forces, of Venezuela. So the meeting is still continuing. We are waiting for the Carter Center delegation to come out and to hopefully hold a press declaration here. But right now, we can state that the Minister of Defense of Venezuela welcomed the Carter delegation wholeheartedly, and they seem to be quite interested in inquiring more details about the election process.
Thank you, Yunus, for the updated information on Venezuela's electoral campaign. That was Yunus Soner reporting live from Caracas on the latest developments ahead of the July 28th presidential elections. Let's go now to a story by Yunus Soner that he sent earlier, the audit process of the voting machines for the upcoming voting day.
The National Electoral Council of Venezuela, the country's only institution to supervise elections and announce results, invited to a storehouse in Filas de Mariches in the eastern part of Caracas. The event, the most important audition of the voting machines.
What do we test today? We test the start of the machine, the zero record of the machine, what they call the zero record, to ensure there are no voters loaded into the machine. We validate the integrity of data, that is, that everything that was audited is what the machine contains. We further validate the act of voting, the counting process, transmission process and the totalization process, and we validate, right, that the paper ballot with the tally sheet and what was transmitted to the totalization matches 100%.
Randomly chosen, 163 voting machines are placed in the storehouse. Each passes the entire voting process. Around each of them, several people observing the work.
We have here more than 18 technicians from the political organizations that represent the 10 alliances and include the 38 political organizations that are participating.
Once the machine finishes work, each of them confirm by signature it's working. In addition to all political parties, watchers from the United Nations and the Carter Center are also present. The president of the council takes a tour and holds a press conference.
This is also an example for the world. As many countries and plenty of institutions have been criticizing Venezuela, and today, many of those institutions are here, including international observers who have verified for all these days by performing audits alongside political parties, with the technicians of the National Electoral Council, with technicians from different universities. And today we feel very proud when we hear them saying this process is perfect.
This was the 10th audition in preparation of the election. 6 more tests are to come till July 28. Authorities informed that all voting machines, 30,026 in total, have been deployed all over the country.
On July 28th, we will have a great electoral party and we'll be at the end of the electoral process in the capacity to transmit the electoral results in the shortest possible time, and subsequently proclaim the next president of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela.
Long live the homeland. Long live Venezuela. And remember, everyone to vote on July 28th. Everyone to the ballot boxes.
The electoral machinery is ready for July 28, the presidential elections here in Venezuela. Yunus Soner, teleSUR, Caracas, Venezuela.
In this context, the candidate of the Great Patriotic Poll, Nicolás Maduro, continues his tour across the whole Venezuela Nueva Esparta state as part of his presidential campaign. There, he was welcomed by a large gathering that ratified the people's support to his governmental upcoming proposals. In that regard, Maduro thanked the people for their backup during the development of his electoral campaign that ends up next July 25th.
With that full moon, I say to Commander Chavez, Commander, this people will not fail you. We are heading towards a great victory next Sunday, July 28th, and we will pass all the bills to that racist oligarchy of Caracas. We will pass the bill of the sanctions. We will pass the bill of the blockade. We will pass the bill of the economic war. We will pass the bill of the today dollar. We will pass them the bill of the U.S. invasion call. We will pass them all the bills.
During his speech, candidate Maduro also expressed his confidence in the Venezuelan people ahead of the presidential elections of July 28th.
Falta poco.
Is not far away, the most important victory of, let me tell you, the 21st century. The 21st century will be written before and after July 28th. It is not by chance that that day, our commander Hugo Chavez turns 70 years old. It is a date with the history of the hereafter and beyond. It is a date with the earthly and the supernatural. It is a date with the history of 500 years of resistance, of 200 years of independence.
Let's now take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. In the United States, support has been pouring in for Vice President Kamala Harris to replace Biden ahead of the November election day. President Biden and former President Bill Clinton, as well as former State Secretary Hillary Clinton, expressed their support for the current VP to take Biden's place. The current president withdrew from the race for the U.S. presidency, a decision that plunged the Democratic nomination into uncertainty just months before the November election against Donald Trump. The move came after weeks long pressure campaign by Democratic leaders, organizers, and donors. Disastrous debate performance last month and his uneven public appearances since have only exacerbated long-standing border concerns that the 81-year-old president was simply too old to serve another 4 years. U.S. House Speaker Mike Johnson called for Joe Biden's resignation following his decision to withdraw from the 2024 presidential race just months before the election. Johnson reasoned that if Joe Biden is unfit to run for the presidency, he is unfit to serve. He also launched strong criticism against the Democratic Party and Vice President Kamala Harris, who according to him has shown as long as anyone of his inability to serve, and whom he accused of being complicit in the greatest political cover-up in the history of the country, as well as in the destruction of national security and prosperity. Johnson said the Democratic Party forced the Democratic nominee to withdraw his candidacy from the ballot with just over 100 days to go before the election. On Sunday, an exclusive interview for our multi-platform teleSUR, the leader of the social movement Bridges of Love, Carlos Lazo, gave details about Joe Biden's resignation from his presidential candidacy.
Many people in the political environment of the United States expected maybe Biden would withdraw, because after the failed performance in the debate with Trump, it was bad news and bad news. The fact that today he announced his withdrawal from the campaign to support Kamala Harris creates a new dynamic in the United States, and towards the election, there was a lot of pessimism among the Democrats because there was little chance Biden would win the elections. Especially in the most important states, these states that are decisive for the presidency. And the fact he is now withdrawing, and the possible presidential candidate Kamala Harris, gives a lot of hope to the Democrats and too many forces that are opposed to President Trump here in the United States.
In the meantime, Carlos Lazo pointed out that the polls were not favorable for President Biden.
Biden received overwhelming support from African American women and African Americans overall at this moment, according to the polls. There is some discouragement among these people. It is not that maybe they are not going to vote or were going to vote against Biden, but that they were not encouraged to vote for Biden. They thought it was worth it to go out and vote for Biden. However, when the same polls were made to these people about Kamala Harris, there was more enthusiasm, there was more intention to vote. So I think that in this sense, we can gather a part of this alliance that is the Democrats. This front that is created by the Democrats of African Americans, Hispanics, migrants from different sectors, and it can have an impact on minorities and on the population in general for this ground, for this idea of an African American woman to be the first president of the United States.
On the other hand, the international analyst Ana Senya assured that this week is key to measure the consensus of the Democratic Party between Kamala Harris and Michelle Obama.
I imagine that during the week, it will be clearer how far the consensus within the Democratic Party can go. There are other candidates who are strong candidates, and there is one who is not a candidate yet, but it is a figure that has been informally being talked about within the United States, that is Michelle Obama. Michelle Obama could be a candidate that if she meets the consensus within the party, she could have the conditions to dispute with the Trump-Vance formula. Michelle Obama has a lot of sway in the population, a lot of recognition. What is not sure yet is that she can really members of the Democratic Party. There are power issues at play, not so much the possibility of having the best candidate to defeat the Republicans nor what the citizens think. That is only half taken into account. But in reality, the definition will be marked by the internal power games among the Democrats, which are not easy.
We have a final short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for English-speaking audience, you can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people concerning news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean as well as the rest of the world. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back. On Monday, the Israeli occupation army ordered a new evacuation of thousands of Gazans from their lands. In this way, soldiers on behalf of the genocidal regime of Tel Aviv ordered the inhabitants of Han Yunis to temporarily evacuate the humanitarian area of Mawasi. For its part, the Zionist army also warned that the new exodus should be carried out immediately, alleging that numerous terrorist acts perpetrated by the Palestinian resistance movement, Hamas, have taken place in these areas. On the other hand, it was also known that in the last hours, Israel bombed more than 35 targets in the region, leaving many dead and wounded. Meanwhile, on Sunday, the United Nations Population Fund issued a stern warning about the growing malnutrition crisis in Gaza, which poses a grave danger to pregnant women and newborns. In its recent publication, the social media X, the UNFPA noted that the birth of premature and low birth weight babies in Gaza has become increasingly common. Local authorities report that since the start of the current conflict on October 7th, the number of Palestinians killed has risen to more than 38,000, with more than 89,000 wounded, most of them women and children. The government media office in Gaza confirmed that at least 34 children have died of starvation and over 3,500 are at imminent risk due to malnutrition. On Sunday, the Islamic Resistance of Iraq launched a new operation against Israeli targets in the occupied territories. In this regard, Iraqi Islamists reported in a statement that the operation was carried out in support of the people of Palestine in response to the genocide carried out by the Israeli occupation army against civilians in the Gaza Strip. Precisely after the beginning of the genocide of the Zionist regime in Gaza in October, the Iraqi Islamic Resistance Movement has attacked Israeli military targets, assuring that these operations will continue with increasing intensity. And the supreme leader of the Islamic Revolution of Iran, Ali Khamenei, expressed his support to President-elect Masoud Pezeshkian. The leader of the Islamic Revolution called on the parliament to give its constructive cooperation to the new government of President-elect Masoud Pezeshkian. Khamenei further stressed the role and determination of Parliament in circumventing the sanctions imposed by the West on Iran. Likewise, Khamenei pointed out that the situation in Palestine remains the first issue of the Islamic world and maintained his steadfast rejection of the indiscriminate bombing of Gaza Strip by Israeli forces. In Bangladesh, Metropolitan Police confirmed more than 500 people arrested since protests began last week. According to the police spokesman, there are currently 532 prevently detained people. In addition to the students, several social leaders, including Kashrun Mahmoud, have also been arrested, despite the decision of the Supreme Court that reversed the controversial law that triggered the protests. The detainees have not yet been released. We have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. Also join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For Telesur English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.